move forward. So welcome to session number 2. I did promise that we would dive into scripts. And before we dive into scripts, I want to just address the homework that I gave you, right? It's been 46 hours since we finished our last session, maybe a little more at this point since I went on my rant. And you had a couple of pages to read in the MREA as well as in your materials that discussed the big why. And I'd like to just kind of hear from a couple of you what your ahas were about that concept and why it's important. And if any of you started to actually work on a big why. So prep for that, because I will look to hear from a few of you. And I also asked you to do the math, right, that we did. We kind of went through math on the board. If yours was different than what we did, I wanted you to do that math again and make sure that you understood what your personal weekly appointment number is. Right, so after we clear through some of the big why conversation, I will ask you to put your appointment number in the chat, just one by one, so we can just see all the appointment numbers as they roll, and then we'll chat about them. So who wants to give an aha on the big why information? Please, not everyone at once. One at a time. There's plenty of time for you all to speak.
I'll jump in. One of my whys initially kind of, as I started thinking about this, I thought, well, make more money. Who doesn't want to do that? But then in going through the questions, it made me think a little bit more about that. And so I ended up with not just making more money, but creating consistent, repeatable, and scalable income. So that was a takeaway from me, just putting more definition around what does more money actually mean.
I love that. So thank you for sharing that, Ryan. And so if you and I were in a one-on-one consulting session, which we're not, so I'm going to throw these questions out and you can kind of think them through. And if you want to connect with me offline, we can continue the conversation. But I want to model for everybody the questions that I would ask Ryan in a one-on-one about this concept, right? And so I love the fact that Ryan got more specific, because you're going to hear me say that 127 times in the next couple of weeks. Like, so here's the answer. What's 3 layers deeper than that, right? Let's get real clarity on that. As you start to build your lead generation strategy, right? Some of you will say, well, I'm going to do open houses, or I'm going to call expireds. That's not a lead generation strategy. What we're going to work with you on is getting real clarity around what that means. So what does it mean to do open houses? What kind of open houses are you doing? Nowadays, we get to ask the fun question, are you doing physical open houses or virtual open houses? Right? If so, how many? What are your expectations from each open house? What's the goal for each open house? Is it number of people through a house, or is it a confirmed lead, or is it a signed buyer, or is it a listing appointment? Let's keep asking the questions to dig deeper so that you get clarity around what the strategy really is about. And so I love that Ryan's instincts took him from kind of scuba diving to, from snorkeling to scuba diving a little bit, right? He went a little bit deeper to get some better clarity around what that money looks like. One-on-one, I would ask him, okay, quantify it for me. How much money? What is that money going to be used for, right? What are the consequences, Ryan, if you don't make that money? How do those consequences make you feel? Who else is affected by those consequences? Right, so those are some coaching questions that if Ryan and I were engaged in a one-on-one about his big why, that I would ask based on his answer. And yet the biggest question I think I would have is, okay, so making money is part of a why. Making specific money for specific reasons is part of a why. Why is that important? by having that result, how does that make you feel? What does it give to you and to your family? Right? And so I want you to go even deeper, right? So we started snorkeling, now we went scuba diving, but now I want you to go like The Abyss. Remember that movie, The Abyss? I want you to go deeper to understand what it is that drives you. Why do you have your real estate license? What's the point of getting up every morning and going to work? And here's what I've learned over time. That why, for some of you, will remain elusive. You may have a bunch of little whys that you're working with to start with, and as you continue to build your business, the bigger why becomes more evident, right? It's also okay that you don't have to be Mother Teresa when you figure out your why. Oftentimes people struggle because the why they come up with seems sort of selfish. It's not about saving the planet. You know, we're not about, you know, helping the poor or doing whatever, right? And that's okay. It's your why. If you're not driven by charity, well, then that why is false for you, right? If you are driven by charity, well, then do a deep dive in there and explore why am I in business? Am I in business to A, pay my bills and support the Save the Whales Foundation? And at what level do I want to save the whales? How important are the whales to me? If the whales aren't saved, how does that make me feel? What level of income do I need to make sure that I'm supporting the whale organizations at a high level? Right? And maybe Save the Whales is a silly example, but it's the one that came to mind, right? So recognize that there's a whole lot inside of these two little words, big why. I'll give you a quick example. When I first got into business, I had whys that were about my finances. They were not charitable in any way. It was very selfish. It was all about what I wanted to earn to live the life that I was looking to live. And I got very specific about how I was going to do that, what the strategies were, and the life I was looking to create. And that life that I was looking to create is what I thought my big why was, until I started to actually accomplish some of those things and check off some of those boxes. And what's evolved over the last 20 years for me is that my big why has turned into something far less selfish. It's become about leaving a legacy for my kids and my grandkids, right? And so now when I wake up every morning and do what I do, it's not because of anything terribly selfish anymore. Now it's all about how can I build something awesome so that when I'm gone or earlier, I can just give all that away to my kids and my grandkids, and they have things that I never had, right? What if I can manage to save college money for every single one of my grandchildren I have no grandchildren, just by the way, right? And maybe I never will, right? Donna, what do you call them? Your unicorns, right?
My mythical unicorns, yep.
There you go, right? So maybe they'll show up one day, and maybe they won't, right? And yet all of it has become about the freedom to give to other people, starting with making sure that my family and my kids have a legacy that I can be proud of leaving them, right? And so it's just morphed over time. Let me ask you this question though, because all of that leads to this question. Why, as business owners, is it important for you to operate from some sort of a big why? Why is that important?
I guess you need a motivation beyond the money.
Who is that, Mariana? You've got the right answer, my friend. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You need something bigger and stronger to pull you through, because let me tell you what, there will be times, just like some of you have owned businesses before, some of you have had different jobs before, there are days you wake up and you think, I don't want to do any of the stuff I'm supposed to do today. I don't feel like it. It's raining. It's cold. It's my birthday. It like and without something bigger to pull you through all of the I don't wanna feelings, most of you, because you're all human, so that means most of you will just give in to the whim of the day. You'll give yourself a pass. You won't focus on the activities that you know have to be focused on in order to create the business that you want, which creates the income that you want, right? So recognize that you need something strong to pull you forward. You need something that's going to, and making money to pay your bills, right? Some of you are absolutely in that position of, I'm here because I need to make money. Here's what I've learned over time. In almost 20 years of working with and coaching real estate agents, and maybe this is human beings across the board, I'm not sure. I don't have experience outside of our industry in terms of coaching people financially. But here's what I've learned. I have learned that more real estate agents will sit in front of me, crying, telling me that they have no money to pay the rent, pay the mortgage, keep the lights on, go buy food. And when I ask, okay, so I understand that that's the issue we're looking to solve. Let's look at what activities you've focused on. What is it you're doing every single day? And the answers are almost always the same. Well, what do you mean? Well, there's activities that drive us to success, right? Are you lead generating every single day? Are you taking that big pile of leads then and working through a conversion process? Are you operating off of an appointment per week number to drive yourself and your business forward? If you're not doing all of those things, it shouldn't be a big surprise that you're not making any money. So here's my point. My point is, I've listened and worked with too many people who don't have two nickels to rub together and yet have said that their big why is to make sure that they have the money to take care of their family. Well, that either your family is not all that important to you, or you haven't quite latched onto a big enough why. And my guess is that it's the second one. Don't give me a bad report because you think I said you don't care about your family. That's not what I meant. Right? So be careful about how you use this. It's a tool. And that's what I want you to recognize. It might sound kind of airy-fairy to some of you, like, okay, yeah, big Y, zippity-doo-dah. You know how I know that? Because the first time I read the Red Book, I skipped over those pages. I'm like, oh my God, I don't have the patience for this kind of crap. Until I recognized that I wasn't strong enough myself to keep doing the things I needed to do to pull myself where I wanted to pull myself. And I needed something bigger and something more something that I was passionate about to get me through the tougher times, to get me through the I don't want-us. Right? Is this making sense? So use it as the tool that it is. Spend time figuring out what that means to you. All right. So if you would, take the next 60 seconds and in the chat box, just type in a number. What is your appointment number that you're going to marry your business to? And all you have to do is put a number. I'm just curious. And remember, this number is your number. Right? It's not somebody else's number. The minimum number is 1. The maximum is whatever you choose it to be. Just remember, if you're going big, you're going to have to find ways to support that big, which is why I'm asking you to be public about it. Right? If you need 2 appointments a week, I'll show you ways that you can create 2 new appointments a week. You just have to be willing to do the activities that go along with those strategies and do them consistently, right? You should write that word down, consistency. Because everything we talk about doesn't work if you're only willing to do it every once in a while. You've got to create a level of consistency around your activities, which feed your business. I wore this shirt today, especially for you. What does it say? Think like what?
A CEO.
Think like a CEO. Remember that this isn't like what a lot of people in America do for a living. You are a business owner. You're hanging your own shingle, right? You're supported by a brand and an organization and people like me to help you grow. But at the end of the day, your business is not my business. I'm just a support system for your organization, which means many of you who are solo agents, you need to wear 2 different hats. You need to wear the hat of the CEO of your organization, and you need to wear the hat of its sole employee, right? And what I find from coaching real estate agents is that oftentimes you're very willing to show up as the employee and kind of do what you think is right, but you forget that you have to also wear that CEO hat and make decisions about the direction of the organization, right? I'll ask you probably a week from tonight whether or not, after we go through all of the sources of business and you're building your lead generation strategies, and we're now a week in. So for those of you who put 1 or 2 or 3, please remember that those appointments per week, you're open, you're licensed, except I think for Spencer. Is there anybody besides Spencer who's not yet licensed? Jennifer's not licensed. I know your name's not Matt. Oh, Pablo's not licensed. Oh, Sanders isn't licensed. Oh, so there's a bunch of unlicensed people. Oh, okay. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. Somebody make it their, I just need a volunteer to tell me when it is 5:50. Because for those of you who are licensed, we're gonna end 10 minutes early. And for those of you who are unlicensed, I wanna spend the last 10 minutes with you, just kind of talking you through what you can do and what you can't do right this very minute. Because there are things that you can be doing. There's also some things that you really should not be doing, right? So give me the last 10 minutes and we'll do that. Yes, it's because PSI has been shut down. All right, well, good. So the good news is they're now open and clearing out the backlog, and I'm certain that I can just see it in your faces. You're all incredibly smart and talented people, so you will pass on your first time and dive right in. So recognize that the CEO and the employee, so a week from now, when I ask you, okay, you put numbers in that chat box, did you hit your numbers? Have you hit your numbers, your appointment numbers per week? If so, great. Tell the room how you did it. If not, let's look at 2 things. Number 1, your activities. Did your activities match your goal? Were you consistent with those activities? Because I want to help you diagnose if you're not getting the results that you're looking for. Let's diagnose what you need to do differently to create different results. And again, I know some of you are thinking, you know what, this guy is a lunatic. It's like we're in the 3rd hour of our time together and he's asking us to be accountable to appointment numbers, and we don't even, we barely know how to spell real estate. Here's why I'm pushing you in that direction. I want you to understand, because I think it's so unfair if I don't say this right up front. I want you to understand that this is one of those scenarios where there is a way that if you focus on certain things, you will start having success right away. It doesn't matter if you're brand new to the industry. It doesn't matter if you only know 17 things about real estate and you need to know 217 to actually go and close some business. Because we can teach you all of that. What I don't want you to do is wait for 4 weeks, or for those of you who are unlicensed for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, God forbid, before you're taking your test and whatnot. And now the entire summer season is gone and you're missing lead opportunities because your niece decides that she wants to put her house on the market, or somebody from your previous job is going to buy an investment condo or whatever, right? There are opportunities that are in each of your worlds right now. And even if you're unable or unwilling to work them solo because you don't know enough, well, let us solve that problem with you. I would rather you run to me and say, Rick, guess what? I did all those things that we talked about, and now I have 2 appointments. What do I do now? We'll help you solve that problem. Even if that means connecting you with somebody who has experience, and you do it, the first one together. If you're unlicensed, we'll figure out how for you to refer it to somebody, tag along so you can learn, but at least you're getting something out of that opportunity, and you're training yourselves and showing yourselves that you can go and find business. I don't want you to wait on that. I want you to start 48 hours ago. Everyone still with me? I don't see anyone running screaming from the room they're in, so that's a good sign. That does happen from time to time. But then I look at it this way. If you run screaming from the room today, far better I told you that right up front than on like the last day, right? Because then you can think, well, I wouldn't have to sit through four weeks of classes. If you would have just told me that on day 1 or day 2, I could have saved myself a bunch of time. So I'd rather just tell you now. All right. Any questions about your appointment number that the CEO of your business is going to hold the employee in your business accountable to? Sometimes that means you need to be a little schizophrenic. I will tell you that. You've got to be willing to ask yourself the question, as the CEO, is my employee hitting their targets? As the employee, you need to think, if the CEO me asked myself today whether or not I should keep my job, what would the CEO's answer be? I'm not sure. And the good news is there's an easy metric to figure that out. I had a coach for a long time before she got promoted and had to kind of dump her coaching load. And at some point she said to me, she would hold me accountable to the things I said I wanted to get done. And one time we started our call, and she went through the things that I had given her to hold me accountable to the previous week. And she said, did you get this done? And I said, well, this kind of came up and that kind of came up. And okay, so she's like, all right, is that yes or no? I'm like, well, no, it didn't get done. Okay, well, what has to happen differently this week for it to get done? And I answered the question, and she went to number 2 on my list and asked me the same question. And I had this whole, like, all the reasons and all the whatever. And she said, you know what, Rick, can we just have a deal? Can we make a deal? And I said, sure. She said, how about when I ask you this question, the answer is you either did it or you didn't do it? Because frankly, I don't care why you didn't do it. That's not important. You either did it or you didn't do it. And if you did it, let's find out how you did it so we can repeat it. Which is why when I asked you guys to share successes, right? And Bogdan says, I did this, this, and this week, and it was awesome. Great. Tell me more about that. How did those clients come into your world? How did you get them to say yes when you were on the listing appointment? What clinched it for you? You won a multiple offer situation? Excellent. What did you do to make sure that buyer was the winner of that multiple offer? Because what we oftentimes forget to do is go back not only and celebrate the successes, but figure out why the successes were the successes so that we can do the same things to repeat the activity and repeat the result, right? And then if for some reason you didn't do it, well, we don't go back to the why. Instead, we go forward. Okay, well, what would have to be different this week for you to achieve the result you're looking for? Let's just focus on moving forward. Everyone's clear about the appointment numbers, yes? It'll be fun, I promise you. Now, here's the other thing I have to remind you, and so those of you who have been through this before, you know how we work this, right? Many of you think, okay, so we report on Mondays. If I report on Mondays and he starts at 4, if I zoom in at like 4:10 or 4:12, I'll miss the reporting thing, so I won't have to report my own numbers. Here's what I need you to understand. I might have been born on a Tuesday, but it was not last Tuesday. So yes, we'll report on Mondays, usually. Sometimes we'll do it right in the beginning. Sometimes we'll do it in the middle. Sometimes you'll think that I have forgotten and we'll stop everything and dive into numbers reporting. I want you to get used to, as business owners, checking in with your numbers at least on a weekly basis, right? This is not about scolding, and it's not about anything more than holding you accountable to doing the things that you said you were going to do to grow this business. Make sense? All righty. So we're going to dive back into the Power Session number 1 materials. We're going to talk a little bit about scripts, and then we're going to talk a little bit about schedule, and then we are going to dive right into some of the, I sent you Power Sessions 2 and 3. First, my apologies. You guys did absolutely ask for me to send things before the day of, and I forgot to do that. So my apologies on that. I own that. That is my error. So you do have 2 and 3 now. We may dive into both of them today, but certainly you have 3 now in advance for Friday. So we are on page 36 in Power Session number 1. And yet before we continue this conversation, I want to just play you a quick video. This is Jeff Glover, who is kind of a master of scripts. I want him to talk with you about scripts for a few minutes. Take some notes on this, and then we'll clear it right afterwards. Here's Jeff.
Hi, I'm Jeff Glover, and I'm going to tell you the top 5 things that you need to know about using scripts. Step 1, you're going to need to get your scripts from a top agent at the office, your team leader, a MAPS coach, or of course Keller Williams University. Step 2, we're going to need to do a total transformation of, instead of talking and telling, of asking questions. Selling isn't telling, selling is asking a series of questions that leads to desired response. So instead of talking so much, we need to get in the habit of asking questions. And asking questions gives us control of the conversation. Control of the conversation gives us our ultimate outcome, which is an appointment set or a closing. Step 3, we need to listen with good intentions. Well, what I mean by that is we need to listen to their answers instead of just listening to them talk and asking another question that comes to mind. For example, instead of asking a seller where they're moving to and then going on to the next question, how soon would you like to be there, ask them, where are you moving to? And when they give you a response, ask them, what takes you there? Step 4 in becoming better at scripts is we need to learn to mimic, mirror, and match the prospect. What I mean by that is we have to listen to their tone of voice. We have to speed up or slow down based on how fast the prospect is talking. That means when they respond and say, we're moving to Toledo, oh, Toledo, that's exciting. What takes you there? 93% of communication is body language and tonality. And that means only 7% are the words that we say or the questions that we ask. Step 5, we need to take these 5 points and practice them daily. If you think of NFL teams, they practice 50, 60 hours on the practice field for a 1-hour game. Our game is our presentations and our appointments, and we need to practice daily. Everything that we've learned every single day before we meet with our clients. When it comes to scripts, my biggest aha is that everybody has their own scripts. We're pre-programmed to have scripts, and we're talking and asking questions that are scripted. However, what we found is that most of our own scripts are no good. And so we have to learn the right scripts, the right questions to maintain control of the conversation. Thanks for watching KW Connect. Make it a great day.
All righty. Thank you so much, Jeff. We always appreciate you. What did you hear? My first thought is, who moves to Toledo? What'd you hear?
To ask the right questions.
Yeah, right. So scripts are all about questions, right? I told you on Monday that what we're going to teach you throughout this course is how to build a consultative business, right? This is real estate by consultation, right? Which is different than real estate by presentation. They're two different things, and I can tell you, I have lived inside of both. And I'll give you the differences in a second. What else did you hear?
Practice daily.
Listening.
Say it again, Lisa.
Listening is key.
Yeah, listening is key, right? We talked about that on Monday. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? Use them in that proportion. You've got to continue to listen aggressively. I love that phrase, what that conjures up, listening aggressively, right? Go ahead, Bob.
You also have to make sure that you match the pace that the customer is going at.
Yeah, that mimic and matching is really important. And I'll tell you what, for those of you who have not worked with that before, it's a lot harder than it seems, right? I'm from the Northeast. I tend to talk fast. I tend to talk with my hands. When I'm across the table from someone who's far slower than me, if I'm just my natural, normal self, kind of talking and doing my thing, that person is looking at me like, whoa, this guy is way too slick for me. That's how I come across, simply because of my pace, right? So you've really got to understand who you're talking to and then kind of mimic and match what's going on there to make sure that you're meeting them where they are. You can't expect people to meet you where you are. Bogdan and then Donna.
Practice daily. There's a Latin saying that says repetition mater studiorum, which means repetition is the mother of all learning.
There we go. So not only did you hear a really good pearl, you heard it in Romanian as well.
No, that's actually Latin.
Oh, it's Latin. Sorry. What is it in Romanian? Give us that too.
Repetiția e mama învățăturii. All
right. See that? 3 languages. He's brilliant. I love it. Right? So practice, and the important thing that Bogdan said in all 3 languages was daily, right? Practice daily. There's a reason that calendar started showing up with practice, 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 practice. I will tell you that if you want to move forward faster, schedule 15 to 20 minutes to practice scripts every day that you work. $15 to $20 minutes every day that you work. And you know what? 4 weeks from now, I'll know who started doing that right away and who chose not to. Because like so many other pieces of this, the ones who choose to start doing that immediately, like, okay, Rick, we don't even have any scripts yet. Well, there are some scripts in your power sessions in these materials. I didn't draw your attention to them, but they're in there. Start there. Just start learning some scripts, right? By the time we're done together, we're going to learn a whole listing consultation, a whole buyer consultation. I'm going to spend time with you on objection handling, right? So that you're armed with words that work in certain scenarios. So you'll have a ton of stuff from us. And yet some of it's just a matter of learning what's in the materials, even if we don't necessarily cover it, right? So daily, daily, daily. I love the idea that he talked about a pro football team that practices, all week long for a 1-hour game. right? If sports isn't your thing and theater is your thing, when you finally make it to Broadway, guess what? You rehearse, you rehearse, you rehearse, you open. And once you open on Broadway, you're still doing 8 shows a week. And guess what? You've got a bunch of rehearsals. You've got to have rehearsals during the week to make sure that nothing's changed. You've got to have rehearsals to make sure that the understudies are kept on their toes. You've got to have rehearsals for the tech people. Once the show's open. So you keep practicing, 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 right? Because that's what professionals do. Go ahead, Donna.
Remembering to take your questions 2 or 3 levels deep so that you can really understand and gather information what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly right. Right. So again, it's I want you to keep thinking about that analogy. Snorkeling is never where we want to be. We always want to be scuba diving, right? Head under the water, going deep, deep, deep. Questions, and we'll come to these questions when I give you the consultation scripts, but questions like, when you listen and someone says something and you can ask another question that, okay, well, tell me why it's important to you. Can you quantify that? Can you qualify that, right? Keep digging deeper because people are not used to being consulted. What makes this a powerful tool is that most of the time in conversations that we have with each other as human beings, we're just kind of up here. We're either snorkeling or we're kind of flying above the water. It's all very shallow, and that's not me calling anybody shallow, but the conversations we typically have are typically more shallow than they are deep, right? And so what's fascinating is that when you learn how to be consultative by asking a bunch of questions and you understand how scripts are used in that scenario and ask the right questions, you create in people kind of this head flip. It's like, wow, you know what? I really like her. I'm not even sure why I like her. Well, it's because Donna's just asked me a whole bunch of questions that are mostly focused around me. For the most part, human beings' favorite topic, a human being's favorite topic is themselves, right? We like to hear our name. Let's face it, on Zoom, how often are you actually staring at yourself and not the person who's talking? I read an article about that last week. It's like 79% of people on a Zoom call watch themselves. Now, that's not to say that we're narcissists, and yet human beings enjoy themselves. And so when you are, professionally, when you are able to ask questions that focus in and have someone talk about themselves, there's an immediate kinship there, and you sound different than other people, right? You sound different than people who are just doing the presentation style. Let me get in front of a room and just talk until you're blue in the face, right? In all transparency, one of the things that I really dislike about Ignite on Zoom is with so many people, it's so much harder for me to involve you guys as much as I would normally like to involve you in the classroom, right? It's just hard. Because we can't have everybody's mic open at one time. In a classroom, people can kind of be talking with each other, to each other, back and forth, and it's so much simpler, right? So it's the one thing that I kind of miss about that. So scripts, I want to give you just a quick rundown of some pointers on scripts, and then we're going to move forward to diving into quick calendar and then source of business. Remember on Monday, we talked about a lot of the reasons why people shy away from scripts, right? I want you to think about scripts in this way. Not only are they words that work, not only are good scripts designed to be entirely focused on the customer, right, and to the customer's benefit. For those of you who struggle with, it doesn't sound like me, I sound a little stilted, the stilted part of that, you get rid of that via practice. the "it doesn't sound like me" part, here's what I want you to think about. Meryl Streep, arguably one of the best actresses, if not the best actress of our time, right? She's been nominated for an Academy Award, I think 30 times or something ridiculous like that. She's won 7 or 8 of them. Now let me ask you this, every time she's nominated or every time she's won an Academy Award, did she write the part? Did she write the script for what she did? No. She was handed a script. The writers wrote the script. She took the script and said, okay, so a human being in these circumstances would say this way. And there is a version of the Meryl Streep inside of each of you that does need to come out in terms of using scripts. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't matter if you think that sounds like you. It doesn't matter if you would say that. Because you're not necessarily just everyday you. There's a professional you and there's everyday you. And sometimes those two people are slightly different, right? I'm not saying go and be insincere. What I'm saying is, don't get hung up on, I would never say the word fabulous, and so this script says fabulous, so I think I should change it. So here are some pointers. Who is Meryl Streep? All righty. If that's a sincere question, you have some serious movie watching to do this weekend. I'll give you a list. So with scripts, I want you to write these things down because they're not in your materials. With scripts, your success with scripts will come from these 4 things. The first thing you're going to do is memorize, right? You're going to memorize the scripts that you obtain. Next, you're going to internalize. So it's memorize and then internalize. And all internalization means is that you've practiced the script enough that it's kind of reflexive, right? You don't have to think about it. It always makes me chuckle when someone says to me, Rick, I was on a listing appointment the other day and I sounded just like you. And I think, well, I hope you sounded just like you. If what you mean is you're using the scripts that maybe we brainstormed together or you learned in something that I taught, that's awesome. And guys, I'll tell you, internalization, that is the key to this success. I will tell you very, very transparently that when I was in the field listing and selling houses, I didn't know scripts the way I do today. Why do I know scripts so much better today than when I was actually listing and selling in the field?
Because you did it so many times during Ignite and other classes.
Well, yeah, because I get to stand in front of you and teach you how to do this stuff. And I don't want to look like a fool. So I practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. I practice more in the role that I'm in now to help you learn how to do this at a high level than I ever did, I mean, just being transparent, than I ever did when I was listing and selling in the field. And what I've learned from that is there is such a sense of confidence and calm that you get when you've practiced so much that you know that anything that comes your way, you can process, breathe through it, and have a smart question to ask to help maneuver through that scenario. It's worth your weight in gold. So memorization is one thing. Internalization is really where it's at, so that you take it out of just your head and it now inhabits every ounce of your body. That's how it becomes reflexive. The next step, so you've memorized, you've internalized, and your next step is customize. Customize. That's a lot of cats, or are those dogs? Dogs? Oh, okay. Hold them up so everyone can see. There they are. Customize. See, some of you are thinking, okay, now he's talking. Now we're to where I wanted to get to. Because these ones I don't like, now I can change them. That's not really what customize means. Customize really means that now you've memorized them in your head and internalized them in your body. You can customize them based on the scenario that you find yourself in. Doesn't necessarily mean change the words per se. It means customize, saying, well, so I use this as an objection handler, but I think it might actually be a cool appointment setting script. So instead of using it here, I might use it in this way. Right? So customization is one of those brilliant things. Again, think back to Meryl Streep or some other well-known actor, John. If you think back to Meryl Streep, she didn't get the script, memorize it, internalize it, and then say to the writers, you know, I'm not really feeling this whole paragraph here when I'm having this conversation with the guy who plays my husband. I was thinking maybe what I could say is this. Because if you know anything about writers in Hollywood, that doesn't fly so well, right? So it's a matter of you customizing your use of those scripts. And so then the very last step is capitalize. So you've got memorize, internalize, customize, and capitalize. So once you've learned them in your head, internalized them into your body, figured out how to utilize them in certain scenarios, you just can use them over and over and over again to do the things that you need to get done. That's the capitalization portion of it. Make sense? So oftentimes people say to me, you know what, there's scripts in all these materials. The scripts I'm going to give you for the list side and the buy side, they are rather thick, right? It's a lot of words. How do I memorize all this stuff? Well, and that's where the daily practice comes in, right? You're not going to sit cramming for this. Doesn't work so well. If you have a listing appointment tomorrow and you haven't been through the listing consultation, I don't advise that you just wing it, and I don't advise that you pretend to know the scripts. What I do advise in cases like that is that you have these scripts kind of typed out on your clipboard and then show up with the client with your clipboard and utilize a cheat sheet. That's what I did. I typed my scripts out and I made it look like there was a question with blanks underneath it or a blank line so I could write in an answer. And as the client would answer questions, I would write some things in there so it didn't look odd. But what that really was, it was my scripts. Before I knew them well, it was just my scripts. And so I could work with those scripts to make sure I wasn't forgetting anything. What I found is that sellers in scenarios like that, buyers in scenarios like that, they were far happier. First of all, most of them didn't even know what I was doing was reading from scripts, or at least referencing scripts. But those who did were far more comfortable with the fact that I cared enough about my time with them to make sure I didn't miss anything than to wing it or make it up. Did you ever go to a restaurant? Remember those things? That's where they serve food. There were waiters. Oftentimes they were inside. You know, back in the old days when those things existed. Did you ever go to a restaurant and the waiter walks up and you're giving the order and they're not writing anything down? Does that make anybody else absolutely crazy? It drives me berserk. I'm like, okay, why aren't you writing this down? I want something very specific. How are you going to, there's 7 of us at this table. How are you going to remember all this? As the customer, I'm far happier for someone to have a cheat sheet and get it right than to wing it and get it wrong. So don't be freaked out if you don't know 100% of the listing consultation and someone asks you for a listing appointment. That's okay. We'll help you figure out a legal way to cheat. until you've done it enough to get it in your head, and then some of those cheat sheets go away. I will tell you, even after I learned it, I still had a bullet pointed agenda to keep me on track. Make sense? All righty. What time is it? Holy Christmas, I talk too much. All right, let's do this. You know what I think I'd like to do instead? Let's, we're going to skip the calendar portion for now. We may get to that on Friday, but I want to dive into some more meat and potatoes. I want to dive into some sources of business, because it's a little unfair that I have challenged you to start meeting your appointment goals like immediately, and we haven't really gone through what your lead generation strategy actually is, right? So let me not be unfair, and let's go through some of those opportunities that you have earlier than maybe we would normally do it, and set you on a path. So for those of you who are following along, I'm going to make you a little bit nuts, because I'm not 100% sure exactly where we're going. I think where we're going is someplace in Power Session 3 that talks about, let me give you a little idea here. So we're really kind of jumping all the way into Power Session 3 on page 26, and we're talking about prospecting sources, right? We're talking about sources of business. I want to get through a bunch of these tonight in our remaining time, and remember, whoever's going to be, who's my 550 person? That's Jennifer. Okay, perfect. And so so we'll finish 40 minutes or so more tonight, and then almost all of Friday will be spent on getting through lead generation sources or sources of business. And so let me ask you this question. When I ask you, where does business come from? What's the first thing that pops into your mind? Somebody unmute and tell me what's first for you.
Friends and family.
So your database, can I call it database, Bogdan?
Or sphere of influence.
Or sphere of influence, absolutely. What else?
Past clients.
Past clients, right? So another subset of your database. What else?
I farm a community.
So farming, I love that. You're talking about geographic farming, Stephen?
Yes, with a plow.
Yeah, but I'm bumps, right? So geo farming, or there are other versions of farming that we'll discuss as well. What else?
Anyone who meets a potential customer.
Say it again, David.
Anyone you meet's a potential customer.
Yeah, anyone you meet. So that's kind of just like living your life, right? To build the database, 100%. We're going to talk about those opportunities as well. You know, the dry cleaner and the bank teller and everybody. So P.S., I gave you a way to cheat. I told you we were in Power Session number 3 on page 26. They're listed there if you want to just read them. What else we got? What's the one that everybody loves that you do on Sunday afternoons?
Open houses.
Open houses, absolutely. What's the one we talked about before? That sometimes you're making phone calls to people.
Expired or withdrawn listings.
Yeah, expired. And so of course in your materials, do note that Lisa said expired or withdrawn. You can take your pen or your Sharpie and cross out withdrawn, right? Because in our state, you cannot call the withdrawns. In some states you can. In the state of Connecticut and the state of New York, in case we have any New York licensees, withdrawns are off limits. right? And so you have all of these different sources. You have open houses, you have expireds, you have for sale by owners, you have your database, you have social media, you have agent-to-agent referrals, you have geographic farming, you have door knocking. All possible sources of business, right? Networking. That kind of goes, that's a little bit what David said with like living every day. Networking is just kind of the formalized version of living every day, right? So if you're a networker, you may network with people you see every day. And then there are other people who have a formalized version of networking, like in BNI groups or networking groups, right? Hey, speaking of networking groups, Bogdan, are you still doing that investor thing via Zoom?
I'm thinking doing it on Zoom because right now we can meet in person.
Yeah, I love that. So Bogdan runs an investors meetup, or he did until the shutdown. And so, yeah, I think you should do that. And if you want help, let me know. I'd be happy to do it with you.
Yeah, that would be awesome because I'll probably need the logins.
Cool. So with all of those potential sources of business, how on earth do you choose where you're going to focus? So let me help answer that question. Of everything that we just talked about, what is the number one source of listing leads for most real estate agents in the United States?
Door knocking.
Door knocking. I love that answer. It's not the right answer, but I love that answer. And I love that answer because so many people run in the opposite direction of door knocking, and it is a valid source of business. It is not the number one source, however.
For sale by owner?
So for sale by owner, I love that answer too. It's also not the right answer.
Database.
Database. Your database is the number one source of listing leads for most real estate agents in the United States. Let me ask this question. What's the number one source of buyer leads for most real estate agents in the United States?
Open houses.
Open houses. I love that answer. Also not the right answer.
Facebook ads.
Facebook ads. I love that. Especially when you're doing them through command. Also not the right answer.
Database.
Database. Database is correct. So the number one source of both listing leads and buyer leads for most real estate agents in our country is their database. Do you see how massively important it is for you to start diving in and building a database? It is the number one source of most business for most people. What's the number two source on the listing side?
Referrals.
So referrals, I'm going to lump referrals, Bogdan, in with your database because most of the time you get referrals from the people that you know who are in your database. So I think referrals is a subset. Say it again, Dana.
Expired.
Expired is 100% right. Right? So on the listing side of things, number one source is database. Number two source is expireds. On the buyer side, number one source is database. And what's the number two source of buyer leads?
Open houses.
Open houses is 100% correct. Yes, even still nowadays, right? Because let me ask this. With the restrictions that are in place from our governors, are open houses, physical open houses, permitted? Yes, they absolutely are, right? They absolutely are. So you have to just, and in today's world, and as we hit open houses, that'll be on Friday, as we hit open houses, we'll talk through how open houses need to be different today, right, than they were up until the second or third week of March. And yet it's still the number two source of buyer leads. Now, what's interesting is that Bogdan said before Facebook ads. And what we're finding is that those Facebook ads, in terms of volume of leads, is coming close and or surpassing open houses as a source. Frankly, for many people, it's surpassing their database in terms of volume of leads. However, the reason that it's still not knocking number one, number two off of their pedestals is because the quality of the lead of the Facebook ad is still relatively low, right? And what I mean by that is you do get some people who answer those Facebook ads who say, I want to buy now. But mostly you get a big bucket of people who you have to follow up with for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, right? They're building your future pipeline leads versus today business. So if in fact the number one source of listing leads and buyer leads is your database, and the number two sources are expireds and open houses, as a business owner, don't answer this as the employee in your business. As a business owner, as the CEO of your company, where would you logically expect people who worked for you to focus their efforts and activities in order to find business fast? It's not a trick question.
Expired, cancels, and open houses.
Exactly right. Your database, your expireds, and your open houses, right? The three big ones. So if you have to pick, again, we're going to go through all of them. But if you had to pick, if you were scratching your head saying, I wonder where I should focus, well, why not just focus on where all the leads seem to come from, right? That's a version of not reinventing the wheel when the wheel has already been invented. People have lived before us and have been successful. I mentioned to you on Monday that your database can certainly start with all of the contacts in your phone, right? Now on Friday, I am going to have someone assist us on our call to show you a simple way to upload contacts into Command. We are not going to touch Command tonight. But Friday we will open Command and just sort of show you very quickly how to get those contacts in there. So you have a CRM, you have a place to put those leads, those potential leads, so that you can start creating systems around touching those leads. Do you think that everybody that you know is in your phone? Yeah, for most of you, the answer is probably not, right? And so one of the things that I would encourage you to do is take a little time, do an exercise. Let me see if I can pop something on the screen for you here. I'm getting there, just a second. Okay. So I want you to check out an exercise. Where'd it go? Nope. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. Are you seeing Power Session 2 on your screen? Okay, good. So in Power Session 2, there's this great little graph that I want to make sure that you see. All right, let's stop here a second, and then I'll show you where I was going. One of the things when you're newer in the business that is difficult to get out of your head is the idea that, okay, so if I'm not all that yet, how do I break in? How do I make sure that people are using me? Because prior to me being a real estate agent, most of the people I know live in a house, which means somebody sold them that house. So isn't it realistic or reasonable to think that they all have real estate agents? This statistic should give you some encouragement on that. And it says that 88% of people would use their agent again, but only 12% do. That is a relatively pathetic statistic, don't you think? It's kind of a condemnation of our entire industry. And it says that we don't do what very well?
Following up.
We don't follow up all that well, right, as an industry. And so part of the technology that's been built for you, part of what Command looks to address is make sure all of your people are in this one database. And then we've got 17 different ways and 17 different buttons you can push to automate your communication with your database. A bunch of set it and forget it tools. A number of, hey, don't forget about me opportunities. Because think about it, if you sold 100 houses in 12 months, and 88 of those 100 people said to you, you know what, thank you so much for your efforts, this was awesome. I would refer you again, I would use you again. And what you found year after year is that only 12 of the people that you worked so hard to create relationships with actually sent you a referral or called you back when they were looking to do business again. Does that work for you? Yeah, I'm so glad to see a whole lot of shaking heads. It certainly doesn't work for me. You're not going to be at 100%, but I think I'd be a whole lot happier if I was close to that 80 or 90% than 12%, right? And one of the ways that you get, let me see if I can get you that other. One of the ways that, we're going to come right back to it. One of the ways that you can make sure that you are in communication at a high level with your database, right, is to leverage technology. Gary wrote a book. We talked about it on Monday. And in that book, he talked about a leveraged loyalty program, otherwise known as the 33 Touch program, right? Where did that number come from? 33 touches in a year.
From the 66 times you have to do a certain thing to create a habit.
So that's a great answer, Bogdan. It's not the right answer, but it is a great answer because you're close. The number comes from the research that Gary did with all the top agents he interviewed to form those foundational models, right? And the average of all those top agents across the country, brand blind, remember, he didn't just interview KW agents, he interviewed all top agents across the country from tons of different brands. The average number of times those people touched their clients throughout the year was 33. Now, the reason I said Bogdan was close using that 66 days to create a habit is that for those top agents that he interviewed to create that model, touching their database was habitual for them. And so after a while, they didn't have to think about it. They just put systems in place so that it would just happen. A lot of it was leveraged through either email or mail. Some of it was leveraged through text. And yet, minimally 4 times a year. So every 13 weeks, every 90 days, once a quarter, they were actually communicating phone to phone, or in today's day and age, phone to phone or Zoom to Zoom. You could start Zooming with your database if you want some extra points. Just know that a Zoom call typically takes longer than a quick phone call, right? And yet, you're certainly more memorable on Zoom. I think I've learned more about people that I was in business with in the last 4.5 months just by looking at their backgrounds, right? Seeing what's around. On Monday, the Lees had somebody playing with I think it was, what was it? What were they playing with? There was somebody in your room. I saw.
A puppy and a daughter.
There you go. Right? And so I haven't met Lisa and David in person yet, but I know a little bit more about them because of what I see in the background, right? So connecting with your database via Zoom might be a more personal approach for those of you who think the phone is a little impersonal, especially for the people who know you, like you, and trust you, and by the way, are already predisposed to do business with you, than just that phone call. So you can utilize it. Like, don't be afraid of it. One of the things we'll talk about, maybe we'll talk about it now, it are some of the things that as you're building this database, like, what do I do with it? Well, yes, there's the 33 Touch program, which is somewhat impersonal, right? Because it is a series of emails and mailings in the, via the post office with occasional touches that are personal. And one of the things that has changed in the world in the last 6 months or so is that there is a need for your business to be a little less transactional and a little more personal. And these kinds of Zoom interactions can accomplish some of that with your database. Here's what I mean by that. Donna, are you in a position to unmute and just talk about your weekly happy hours?
Yeah, I've got a thunderstorm going on here, but other than that, yes. So we have been since, oh gosh, early in March, just about when it shut down. We have been meeting via Zoom twice a week. We do it on Tuesday night and we do it on Saturday night. Originally it started with about 6 people who I know really, really well, and it was just come. I had no real agenda. Just come, have your beverage of choice and your snack, and let's just talk and share. Because people, if you remember at the beginning, I mean, we were shut in. We had no contact with our friends or family or anything. And this group of people and I, we spent a great deal of time together we show dogs together. But anyhow, so I'm happy to say that it has grown to probably about 20 people. Not everybody comes every single time, but we haven't missed a Tuesday or a Saturday. We were on last night, and now it's morphed in. I mean, I had to buy a paid Zoom account because it went longer than the 30 minutes. So we're on for 2 hours easy, twice a week, just chatting and talking and having fun and communing like you would if you were to get together. And it's, at the end of every call, people are like, okay, so see you Saturday or see you Tuesday. So it's just been a real, and I will say, Rick, you don't know this. I've actually gotten one buyer lead and a seller lead out of that, and they're like in my sphere. It was just keeping us all together, and we don't talk real estate at all. Sometimes they bring it up, they ask me questions. It's been great.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing that, right? So the idea of doing something personal, right, to connect with people, because I can read some of your minds. One of the things I've gotten good at in the last couple of years is reading minds in the classroom, and part of what I'm reading is some of you thinking, oh, you know what? So here's the part that I was dreading. Here's the part where he says, I have to go and troll my friends and my family to find business, right? I have to annoy them by calling them, and I have to aggressively be annoying to make sure that I get business. And the good news is that the last 4.5 months have taught so many of us about different versions of just simply being personal with our databases and offering an opportunity to talk where oftentimes they'll bring up the business where you don't have to, right? And then you're just in a mode to say, someone will say, oh, so, Ryan, how's that real estate thing going? And then Ryan has an opportunity to say, you know what, it's going great. Or someone will say, here's the question you hear the most often when people know you're in real estate. If like the conversation, it's like, oh, someone tells a joke, everyone laughs, the laughter starts to get a little quiet, there's this slight lull, and someone's thinking quick, okay, well, what kind of, oh, so Donna, I'm curious, how's the market doing? And then you have that opening to simply provide information because they know that's what you do for a living. If everyone didn't remember that, well, then your friend Marie just reminded everybody what you do for a living. And your knowledge about the market, when you answer that, right, which by the way, the correct answer to that is always, it's great. Why do you ask?
Yeah. The number one question has been, how is your business? Are you able to show houses? You're selling stuff? I mean, they just are starved for information. Then when, you share what we're doing, they're blown away and they're like, oh, and it kind of feels for them like, maybe we are going to all be okay. I found that early on. It was like, oh, so the earth is still turning and we're going to make it out of here. So it was a comfort, those care calls we talked about. This turned into like a real kind of hug moment twice a week.
With adult beverages, what could be finer? Right? So recognize that that you have a real opportunity here. Again, whether you're launching or relaunching your business, you have an opportunity to create something inside of your database that not only contributes to your business, contributes to a version of generating leads, contributes to a mind share capture, right? Because ultimately, connecting with your database is all about making sure that the people who know you, like you, and trust you, and are already predisposed to do business with you, remember what you do for a living. I will tell you, the huge learning curve for me, I had good success early on in my career, mostly as a listing agent. I focused in on that as much as I possibly could. Grew a decent sized business relatively quickly, and focused very much transactionally. I was not the like warm and fuzzy, smiley, let me call you and see how you're doing guy. I wasn't that. I looked at myself as a service professional who got into business with people when they needed the service, provided high level service during that transaction, and then when the transaction was done, said thank you very much and moved on to the next transaction. And what I learned a couple of years into my career was that is certainly a way that you can build a business, keeping it all transactional. However, what you lose is you lose a lot of the repeat and referral business that starts the hockey stick going further faster, right? And what I mean by that is I started to see properties that I had sold somebody come on the market with somebody else. And I to this day, when that happens to people, they come to me and say, Rick, you're not going to believe this. I'm so upset. I lost a listing. I said, well, tell me what happened. And they said, well, I don't even know what happened. I sold them the house 3 years ago and it just came on the market with somebody else. And my answer to that is, if I may, you actually lost something far more important than the listing. You lost a relationship. Because they didn't even call you. They didn't even give you an opportunity. That to me says you lost the relationship. And your database you need to continue to remember that the relationships you have inside of that database, that's what keeps that healthy. And so the last 6 months, the last 4 or 5 months or so have given us all such a unique opportunity, knowing that we had one thing that we could do, right? End March, April, even into early May. For those of you who were around on our Zoom calls, there was one thing to do, and that was call your people, call your database. And then when you get through all of them, call them again. Make sure they're okay. Ask what they need. Be reassuring. Talk to them about what our industry is experiencing. Because frankly, during April and May, what we were experiencing was higher than normal volumes of business. And as Donna said, when people heard that, even people who were like hunkered down, like not going, like peering out the window, seeing people walk past, that was reassuring to them. And so if there's never been a time, at least in my career, where there was so much opportunity to learn how to be far more personal with our databases, which what we're finding now is a massive boom to business. It's also massively human and fulfilling, right? Because you are building relationships. Part of the reason that the last few months have been so difficult for most human beings is because human beings are communal creatures, right? We crave each other. Even those of us who say out loud we don't really crave each other, I'm gonna tell you what, if after 3 or 4 weeks I was dying to see somebody in the office and I was saying that, because for the most part, I'm kind of a leave me alone, let me sit in my own little space and let me do my thing kind of guy, right? But it was such a learning experience to recognize how communal we really are. Take that as a lesson for those of you who are building a database or relaunching a business by diving into an existing database. You need to continue to find ways to engage that database. Not necessarily as one big database, but maybe a group of 10 over here and a group of 5 over here and a group of 20 over here. Right? As you start to do that, what you'll find is that you setting up a platform to communicate will return business opportunities for you, which is different than dialing through your database, trolling for business. Now, that does not mean that I'm removing some of the business scripts from prospecting, because some of this is still prospecting based, right? What you're doing with all of that, more human connection stuff, is you're earning the right to ask some business questions, right? You're earning the right to answer business questions on what is designed as just a communal, hey, let's get together type happy hour call, right? If you dive into your database first and foremost saying, hey, John, just wanted to touch base and let you know that I've opened this awesome, powerful real estate firm. Who do you know? Who do you know that I can help? Here's what I've learned. 50% of the time, John, who now represents your database, right? John's going to kind of lean back from that and not lean into it. Because 50% of the time, John's behavioral style wants you to be a little bit more personal with them. Here's the other thing I've learned. 80% of you will not do what I just said anyway, even if I said the only way to have success in real estate is to dial through your database and ask people who they know that's interested in buying, selling, or creating wealth by investing in real estate. Because 80% of you are those people who want it to be more personal, who want it to feel like it's not bothersome and annoying. Right? You can say yes, because I know that 80% of you are agreeing with what I'm saying, right? It's just statistics. It's human behavior. And so what's awesome for you Because if you were in my Ignite class 6 months ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd get around to a version of it later on, but we wouldn't be having this conversation. And I think for so many of you, this concept, this idea will be so helpful to you to really start communicating with the people who already know you, like you, trust you, and are already predisposed to do business with you, AKA your database, that you will start reaching out. You will start having conversations. You can still call, right? I might call Ryan and say, hey, Ryan, it's Rick Scott. I just wanted to check in with you, see how things are going. I'm going to start personally. How are you? How have you fared through this craziness? How's your family? What's the deal? Like, what are you doing nowadays? Anything I can do to help you succeed at a higher level, right? Maybe I'm calling Ryan and he's a doctor. Maybe he has some horror stories. Maybe I'm calling Ryan and he's a stockbroker and he has some horror stories about what's going on in the stock market. Maybe I'm calling Ryan and he owns a small business in one of the towns in Fairfield County, and we get to have a little conversation around that. Being human with somebody earns you the right for the next question. Now, here's the important part of this conversation. For some of you, you'll have those check-in calls. Care calls still matter. In today's environment, care calls still matter. You can make care calls about the health issue that has still not gone away. You can make care calls about the social unrest in our country. You can make care calls about so many different things that are topical and relevant. I don't encourage being political, and yet a care call can be a care call about how's it going? Like, we are living in like upside down times. There's nobody who would disagree with you if you called and said, just checking in on you because we are living in upside down times. Because things are still upside down. Now, some of you will look to have that be your only conversation. And I would encourage that. That may surprise some of you. If what you will do as an activity is start dialing through your database or start dialing through the contacts on your phone tonight, tomorrow, and start making care calls to see how people are, and that's all you do, and you hang up the phone and make a note, I consider that a positive activity to push your real estate career forward. P.S. Those of you with no license, it's kind of the only thing you can do right now. I just cheated. I gave you the answer I was going to give you at 5:50. But that's it. You can make care calls. You can. Well, I'll give you the rest of it later. But the idea of those care calls is universal for everybody. Some of you may feel comfortable enough, right? Ryan and I have a conversation. He's a small business owner. He tells me his war stories. We talk about the fact that his store is open. I talk about my business a little because he asks me back. I may feel comfortable enough at that point to have earned the right to say, since you brought it up, Ryan, I'm curious, if there's any way that I can help you in your business. And maybe we have a chat about that. And then I don't let him get off the phone without me being able to say, hey, and before I let you go, I'd be remiss as a business owner not to ask, who do you know that might be interested in taking advantage of the benefits today, looking to buy, sell, or create wealth by investing in real estate? Or maybe I finalize the call with just the care call, make a note, and then a week later, go back to Ryan and say, hey, Ryan, it's Rick Scott one more time. Hey, you know what? It was so great to catch up last week, and you've been in my head. I've been thinking about you all week. Do you mind if I just ask you a quick business question? Because you've just been rattling around my brain. If you had a pleasant conversation last week to ask how Ryan was, he's not going to say no. Remember, these are people in your database. They know you, like you, and trust you. and are already predisposed to do business with you. So then Ryan says, yeah, of course. Great. You know what? Based on what occurred the last couple of months, I'm a little behind on my own business goals. And I was curious who you might know that's interested in taking advantage of today's market opportunities. You know, someone who's interested in buying, selling, or creating wealth by investing in real estate. Question number 1, can you tell that I have said that a bazillion times? Because it's just a script. It's a tool of our trade. It's just a simple business question. So for those of you who are concerned about coming across too strong to a database of people that you know, I encourage you wholeheartedly, and I'm not kidding when I say like at 6:01 tonight, or for some of you at 5:51, because some of you will be out at 5:51, those of you who have licenses. Open your phone, scroll through the contacts, pick somebody and call them and see how they are. Challenge yourself to do that one phone call tonight. And just have a care call. Just see how people are. Some of those people might say, hey, you know what, Spencer, how's that whole real estate thing going? Weren't you getting into real estate? Well, and if they ask, then have the conversation. Yeah, it's going awesome. I'm like this close to hanging my shingle out. Hey, you know what? Since you brought it up, could you do me a favor? Could you keep your eyes and ears open for anyone who's interested in taking advantage of today's opportunities in the marketplace? You know, someone who's interested in buying, selling, or creating wealth by investing in real estate. Someone else opens the door, go for it. Lay that foundation. Here's what I can promise you. Some of you will heed this advice and hang up from this Zoom call, scroll through your phone, and make one care call. Those of you who do will be far better positioned to have a successful real estate career. And I know that sounds absolutely absurd, but here's what I know. It's about activity. It's about saying yes to the activities that create opportunity. And if you decide tonight to pass on that one simple activity, tomorrow, when you get up to go to work, to continue your lead generation activities and your lead conversion activities, right? Because we're still pushing towards finding those appointment opportunities. Even though some of us don't know enough about where to go from there, we're still pushing for it because we'll help you on the other side. It's easier for you to blow that off tomorrow and then blow it off on Friday and then blow it off next week and decide that you'll really start doing that once Ignite is over, regardless of what this guy on the Zoom screen says. And now you've blown it off for 4 weeks and you've started to train yourself that what real estate really is about listening to people on Zoom. And that's dangerous. Instead, what I'm asking you to do is prove to yourself that you know how to do what I'm saying to do. Because you've all made a phone call before, and you all have somebody in your phone who you could call and simply say, even if you like call a sibling, call a parent, call like a family member and say, so I'm making this phone call because this guy that we're listening to on Zoom in my new career here told me to make a phone call and ask how somebody is. So would you mind, Mom? Would you mind, Sis, if I just used you for that and asked how you are? Because I'm still a little freaked out to call somebody who's not you. I'd rather you do that and cheat it and do the activity, because I guarantee you when you finish and you hang up, you will have a sense of accomplishment and you'll check that box to say, you know what? I did do a care call, which means I can wake up tomorrow and I can do 5 or 6 more. And frankly, if you're brand new in the industry, what else are you doing? Right? If you don't have any clients, well, searching for clients is the only thing that you need to be doing. That and studying, for those of you who have to take your test. You have to also be studying. But for those of you who passed the test, the studying part's over. Now you've got to get in front of people.
It's 5:51.
Thank you very much. I'm going to answer Dana's question, and then I'm going to chat with those who don't have their license. So Dana's question is there an opening line if we call someone we haven't spoken to in a long time or never knew well enough to appear to care how they are doing? That's a great, great question. And what I would say is this. It's the same opening line that I gave you, maybe with a slight change. And so if Ryan and I haven't spoken in like 3 years, and yet he's in my phone, but we met someplace, I might call and say, hey, Ryan, it's Rick Scott. I'm not sure if you remember me. We met at that investor seminar I did, 2 years ago. I know it's been a long time. I'm curious. I'm going through my phone, kind of looking to chat with and reconnect with people. How have the last couple of months been for you? Crazy times we're living in, huh? Just add a little, it's been a while. If you remember where you met somebody, use that. I think that's accurate, Ryan, right? Didn't Bogdan bring you to an investor seminar? That's where we met? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, I thought so.
It was last year, not 2 years ago.
Oh, was it only last year? Oh, see that? Seems like
feels like 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So add in a small little thing of, it's been a while, or you might not remember me, however, and then just ask how they are anyway. It may be a slightly odder conversation with people who really you don't have a connection with, right? And so what I would say to you is start with people you do. Start with people in your phone that really are your Met database, people that you know, because it will be easier for you to have those conversations, and then move to people that you have less of a connection with. Here's the other thing I've learned. We one time on my sales team had a contest. We dialed back far enough into our database. The contest was who could talk to somebody that they hadn't spoken to for the longest period of time. My business partner, is Debbie on the call? I don't think she is tonight. My business partner won. She called somebody she hadn't spoken to in almost 20 years. And what we learned from doing that very clearly was that people don't remember when the last time you spoke to them is. Like they don't have a little date book that says, that Rick Scott, oh my goodness, it's been 1.5 years since he called. I have it right here. It was March 12th of 2019. I can't believe he called now expecting me to have a chat with him. They don't do that. The fabulous idea here is you're reaching out to them. You're taking the time to check in and see how they are to earn the right later on to earn their business. That's where you have to focus. Don't overthink this. Because it's easy to. Trust me, I have been there. It's easy to overthink it. That's why I'm encouraging you to make one care call to someone you know in your phone tonight, and then tomorrow dive into a bunch more and start making those care calls. Because even if you don't get to start asking business questions this week, by next week, your follow-up will be a version of what I gave you earlier, and you can start having those business conversations to start seeing if there are appointments to be had. Here's the last thing that I'll leave you with. For those of you who are brand new to the industry, don't try and hide from the brand newness from your Met database. They already know you're brand new, right? I get that question all the time. Well, aren't people afraid to work with a brand new real estate agent? Well, that's why we're focusing you in on people who know you, like you, and trust you already, because they are predisposed to do business with you, and they already know you're brand new. right? Your friends and family know that 6 months ago, you weren't in real estate. You were doing something else. Does that make sense? So don't hide from that. And if you need to buoy yourself, Bogdan just gave you exactly where you go. It's my team and I, right? If someone does question it, say, actually, yes, I am actually pretty new to the industry. However, I have an amazing team behind me. And my team and I sell more real estate in the state of Connecticut than almost all of our competitors. And that is a true statement, by the way. I'll dive into some statistics on Friday that will arm you with some better conversations. Make sense? All right, guys. Friday, 4 o'clock, we are going to go through, if it kills me and you, the rest of the sources of business, right? Because we only kind of got through a database conversation tonight. So all of those sources, we're going to hit them in that 2-hour period of time so that you can start strategizing what else you're going to do to find business. But I encourage you to start now with the database conversation, even if it's just one tonight. As a matter of fact, do me a favor. Once you hang up from your care call tonight, I want you to either text me or email me. This is called accountability. It's what it looks like. There's my phone number. There's my email. Just text me or email me with your name and your thumbs up. Say, you know what, I did it. That's all. I just want to know you did it. Ultimately, I want you to know that you did it. Sometimes that involves other people. All right, guys, have an awesome evening. In our remaining minutes, folks who are unlicensed still, if you want to hang behind, here's what I will say to you. You can't do things that indicate that you are practicing real estate, right? So you can't engage with potential buyers and potential sellers. However, you can make care calls. You can, with your Met database, you can make, like, I call them coming soon calls. And what that means is Spencer could dial through his phone and call all of his friends and say, hey, you know what? I just wanted to let you know that this is the direction I'm going in. I am nearly complete in opening my new business, right? And I would talk about it like that, right? I'm opening a powerful real estate firm. I'm opening a new business. I'm launching a new business. My specialty will be in real estate. My specialty will be in residential real estate, right? Stay away from the, oh, I just got my license, right? I'm getting my license. I'd rather you talk about it in a way that is a little more powerful than that, right? Because some of that will dispel some of the angst that some people in your database might have because you're newer, right? So talk about it in a way that sounds powerful, market it a little bit, right? You can have those conversations. You can have those conversations all day long. You know, so if I'm calling Spencer and I say something like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I am this close to opening my brand new real estate firm, and I'm so excited to open this business. One of the things that I would love from you is if you could start putting your radar up, because one of the things that I'm going to need right away once I am ready to launch are some clients. And so what that means to me is anyone who's looking to buy, sell, or create wealth by investing in real estate. Whether that's you or someone you know, could you be on the lookout and just kind of pass me their information? My expectation is that my business will be fully functional in about 30 days or whatever your time frame is, right? So you can have the coming soon conversation, you can have the care call conversation, and if someone says, oh man, like if Spencer says to me, oh, that's too bad, you know what, because I'm like my girlfriend and we're looking to buy something pretty soon. Hey, you know what, no worries, I have an awesome team behind me. What I'd love to do is connect you and me with one of my partners, knowing that you have needs that I might not be able to meet until I actually hang my shingle in a couple of weeks. Let me connect the three of us, and we'll sit down and have a conversation, because the last thing I want you to do, Spencer, is in a weak moment, hire a weak real estate agent. And so Spencer's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Great. You know what? Let me give you a shout back in about an hour and we'll put something together. And then I hang up the phone. I panic a little because now I'm like, okay, now what do I do? And then call me or call your team leader, call one of your ALC members, call somebody on this Zoom call that's a more experienced agent and say, hey, I need some help because I have this opportunity. I don't want to let it go. Better that you partner with someone on that first round before you're even licensed, and rather that than miss out on it, right? Does that give you some help and some guidance as to the things that you can and should be focusing on pre-licensing?
Hey, Rick, I had a question. You kind of answered it.
Yes, Marissa.
Wow, I forgot English all of a sudden. Sorry. As Pablo's going through the licensing process, you know, taking his tests and stuff, you know, he, you know, of course, has been telling everybody, you know, that he's going to be a real estate agent soon. And he's been coming on showing some stuff with me as well. But I guess I'm curious, you know, what if he does run into someone who's like, man, Pablo, I would love to be my agent. Like, you know, before pre-license, essentially everything would come through me. Is that correct? Like you just suggested?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Pablo has the, hi, Pablo.
Hi.
Pablo, you have the benefit of living with a licensee, right? And so you can just funnel everything through Marissa, right? Anybody else have that benefit of living with a licensee? No? Anybody? So anybody else who doesn't happen to live with a licensee, you could call Pablo and Marissa and see if you could move in there, and that might solve your problem, right? Or you'll have to use the team behind you. But in Pablo, in your scenario, yeah, until you're licensed, you just funnel it through Marissa. The good news is you can certainly accompany, you know, so the licensee would be Marissa. You could certainly accompany on showings. You would just have to be cautious around advising a buyer client before you're licensed. All that would have to be spoken by Marissa.
Okay, thank you.
Did that help?
Yes.
Cool beans. Any other questions? All right, yes. I'm sorry, I don't want to call you Matt because I'm certain your name's not Matt. Hold on, you're muted. Let me see if I can unmute you. I think you're muted on your side.
Unmuted now.
There you go.
Sorry, it's Nicole. I think my husband used my iPad for his meeting and switched it.
Perfect.
So 3 weeks ago, I had, you know, signed up for I finished school April 1st, and then I'd signed up to take my test, and then out of nowhere, like maybe 3 weeks ago, the only test date they would give me was 2 days away. So I just figured, I mean, I wasn't prepared, and I went in and I took it anyways because I figured I had nothing to lose.
Right.
And I got 65. So now I have to go, of course, I have to go back and do it again. And that's in August 25th, I think. But I kind of felt like everything that I remembered and studied for on the test, like dates and numbers, and none of those things were really on it. It was more hypotheticals. And then I was, you know, overthinking it. And then the timing kept going, you know, you have 37 questions in 32 minutes. And I was really, I made myself nuts towards the end.
Yeah, and so I think you're right. I think that the good news about taking the test one time is that now you know where to focus the studying, right? Because it is less about, well, the other thing I should say, or at least warn, is there's not one test.
Yeah.
Right? There's a bunch of different tests they circulate. Sometimes you might need to know some more dates on some of those tests, and some of it is more theoretical, depending on which test you get thrown into. But I think that second time around, I can't believe you have to wait another 5 or so weeks.
That
That's
was the first.
crazy.
That was the first opening. Was 6 weeks away.
Wow, that is just nuts. Are the rest of you scheduled, or you're waiting for a test date?
Still waiting.
Wow.
Yeah, we're still waiting.
Waiting.
I sent mine like over a month ago. I've called, I've emailed, and still nothing to schedule my exam.
Man. Yeah, so I'm going to. How many of you took class with
Karina.
with Karina? Thank you. Just by a quick show of hands. And how many of you took it with somebody other than so Karina or Real Estate University, Karina's company? Right. So a couple of you and so others of you not. I'm going to chat with Karina and just see what she's hearing and see if there's any kind of shortcuts that I can bring back to you on Friday to try and get a test date sooner or faster. Sometimes the instructors, our team leader in the Ridgefield Market Center, he's also an on and off instructor for Karina. So let me see what I can do on that end. Yes, Jennifer.
The soonest one I was able to get was September the 1st.
Oh.
After they kept canceling mine because they canceled mine for June, the end of June. And then when I finally got through to them, because the system was just all screwed up, it was September the 1st for me. They said I could take it in Brooklyn or Queens, and I was like, no, it's okay. I just have to wait.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm waiting. And I took it with Chris Ferris.
Oh, okay, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me do a little digging and see if I can't figure out some other opportunities or shortcuts for you guys. Yeah, Nicole.
I just wanted to say I took it at Milford. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying, so maybe that location had
No.
more.
No, Milford was the one, that I had to wait for. So backed up, and then they have capacity now, they said.
The girl who runs I think her name is Jill, who runs the runs the office for Real Estate University. She's also waiting for a date, and I talk with her often. And she couldn't believe that I must have got somebody's cancellation, which is the only reason I got a 2-day heads up.
Yeah.
But do you think it would be worth it for me to spend the $20 and take the online test like a few times before then?
I personally do. I think being prepped, knowing that if you don't come out with a pass, it could be another 6 or 8 weeks, right? I mean, likely those times are getting shorter, but I would be as prepared as possible. I do think those online tests do help, mostly just to get you in the frame of mind about what the questions are like.
Yeah, Rick, when I was studying for my test, in the back of the book, I found a website they listed by the book publishers, and they had practice tests online. And I remember I just took the practice test over and over and over again, and then those exact questions were on the test.
Oh, okay.
Granted, that was 4 years ago, but that's what I did.
Thank you.
Yeah, it probably hasn't changed all that much. That's a great point, Marissa. Thank you for that.
In the Dearborn book?
Yes.
Okay, because I have the Dearborn app, and you can pay for those those tests. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. We do have for just PS, I know there was a question about where to find some of the Ignite videos after if you miss one. They are on our YouTube channel. I just unfortunately don't know exactly how to tell you where to find that. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that Stephen has that information to pass that along. And then on Friday, I'll make sure that everybody knows where the YouTube channel is, just in case you miss stuff, right? Because most of our trainings are recorded and they're posted by the next morning on the YouTube channel. So we'll get that information out to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else before we finish up?
Yes.
The last 4 digits of your number.
3153.
Hello?
Yes, Sylnev.
Yes, I took real estate principles and practices 5 years ago in community college. So, but I didn't go to get the test. So now I think I have to take the class again somewhere. I don't know. How can you help?
How long has it been since you took the class and passed the class?
a while, about 6 years ago. It's been a while.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if it's been 6 years, you do have to take. I think you have to start from scratch. What I'll do is send me either a text to that number I put in the chat or an email to my email address, just with a principles and practices ? And I'll get that to one of our team leaders, and we'll get you information to contact Karina and enroll in her school.
Goods ordered.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. All right, guys. Time for dinner. I'm starving. I don't know about the rest of you.
See you Friday. So.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Thanks, you too.
Thanks, Rick.